Global stock markets record major losses after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed his reciprocal tariff policy on imports from more than 180 countries.
China slaps retaliatory tariffs of 34% on imported goods from the U.S., causing stock markets worldwide to sink lower on Friday.
At least 14 people were killed and more than 24 others injured in a Russian ballistic missile attack on the central Ukrainian city of Kryvyi Rih. Markets are continuing to feel the jitters of Trump's aggressive global tariffs. Trump unveiled his global reciprocal tariff policy, which imposes customs duties on imports from more than 180 countries, ranging from 10 to over 50%. This was exacerbated after China also imposed its own counter tariffs on the U.S. European markets experienced a sharp decline on the first day after the announcement. The German DAX fund closed the week with a drop of more than 1,000 points, roughly 5%, setting a new daily low for the index. Spain's largest stock market, the Iberian Index, or IBEX 35, also experienced similar decline. France's CAC 40 dropped about 4.3%. Trump's policy also recorded some significant blows to U.S. stock markets. The S&P 500 fell by roughly 6%, a record low since the COVID-19 pandemic. The Dow Jones Index reported a 5.5% decline, while the Nasdaq Composite also saw a fall of almost 6%. Trump seems unfazed by the market reaction to his policies, instead noting that the decline will only be temporary.
China announced on Friday that it would impose a 34% tariff on imported goods from the U.S. starting from next week. The move is a response to a U.S. levy of the same amount on Chinese goods announced by U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week. The U.S. 34% tariff could rise to at least 54%.
同日，商务部发布2025年第18号公告，对山、嘎、特、低、鲁、看、乙等7类中重稀土相关物项实施出口管制，发布第21号公告，将16家美涉军实体列入出口管制管控名单，禁止向其出口两用物项。
China's response caused an immediate acceleration of losses in markets worldwide on Friday, with the nations being two of the world's largest economies. Analysts warned that the tariffs would hurt not only U.S. companies but also U.S. consumers, who will end up paying higher prices.
Ukrainian officials say Russia targeted the central city of Kryvyi Rih with ballistic missile attacks on Friday. At least 14 people were killed, including 6 children, and more than 30 others were injured and receiving medical attention. Authorities warned the death toll may continue to rise from the attack on the residential neighborhood, stating that some of those wounded sustained critical injuries. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 5 buildings were damaged in the process and accused Russia of not being serious about the prospect of peace. The attacks coincided with the Kremlin sending an envoy to Washington for talks with U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. Kirill Dmitriev, who heads Russia's sovereign wealth fund, says his talks with U.S. officials explored ways to normalize Moscow and Washington's relations. The talks, which he described as productive, also addressed economic and investment questions. Zelensky says Dmitriev's visit was aiming to discuss the possibility of withdrawing $300 billion in Russian frozen assets.
Two main messages resonated through all the speeches of Central Asian leaders on this summit. One was that they demonstrated once more that the region achieved prosperity, stability, good neighborly relations and harmonious approach to further development, and that the European Union recognized so by speaking to them as if they were a kind of a bloc, which gave them more weight on the international arena.
And a close cooperation on these topics and more to come. Thank you very much.
Главный вывод для нас в том, что в принципе сейчас Центральную Азию воспринимают как единое целое. Центральная Азия является надежным мостом между Китаем, Юго-Восточной Азией и Европой, но также и надежным поставщиком необходимых материалов. Речь идет от урана, нефти, газа до критических материалов, продовольственных товаров, пшеницы.
The second is that the Central Asian leaders on this summit, they eagerly embrace all the forms of cooperation proposed to them by the European leaders on the summit because they saw it as a way to further development.